reason I think you and I experience Lent each year as so powerful, reaching us in a very unique and personal way, is because it marks out the path that Jesus took to save us. You might say in broad strokes, it's the itinerary of the Word made flesh to rescue us from sin. And one way to think of it is a desert between two gardens. If you recall, God created everything good. We weren't meant for estrangement, for degradation. We were meant for this intimacy. There Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. They were naked without shame. There was this complete trust, profound intimacy. But even without knowing the story, but we do know the story of their failure and fall, we live the consequences of it to this day. And we have our own sin to bear. And it brings us to very desolate places, the deserts of our own life. And so where does Lent begin? Where does Jesus begin his public ministry to save us? In a desert. It's like he'll find us in whatever desert. You know, our addictions, the ways we put our comfort and pleasure ahead of love. We don't have to search too far back in our memory to know where our places of desolation and arid dryness, unfulfillment, Jeremiah will say, trying to create a well in a desert. It's impossible, but we try. Of course, the whole season is leading us to a different garden. It's the garden with the empty tomb. He doesn't just recapture what was, he makes it better. We're renewed, we're recreated. Mary Magdalene, the first to lay eyes on him, the risen Jesus, actually mistakes him as a gardener. But the Passion says before that garden, there's another. You see, between this Passion account that we hear every Palm Sunday, again on Good Friday, between the upper room, where he gave us his greatest gift, his body and blood, and between Calvary, where he enacted it fully, Jesus chose to enter a garden, the Garden of Gethsemane. And saints have pondered this moment as so pivotal in the life of Jesus and for us. There's a very contemporary, beautiful painting that I love by Adam Abrams, reflecting this event of the Passion, this mystery in the life of Jesus to save us. First of all, the first impression is it's dark. It's a dark place. The only light is from the full moon. That would have had to have been because that's why they knew to celebrate the Passover. Think of the darknesses of our own life. Like Jesus actually will go to those places. Von Balthasar has this great quote, when Christ came to save us, he humbled himself so low that afterwards whoever would fall on him. Psalm 139 will say, even the dark is not dark for you. But boy, it cost him. This is the second impression of this painting by Adam Abrams, is that Jesus is not kneeling. There's no form of outward piety. He's collapsed. He's prostrate, just as St. Mark told us. He fell on his face. He literally kind of has his hands over his head. When I was showing this artwork to the children, they pointed out that it looked like his clothes were drenched with sweat. Another fact that St. Luke will give us, That sweat would become drops of blood. He was so distressed and in agony. Like it's the moment of decision for him, for us. And the third impression that he creates in this painting of the scene is that Jesus is all alone. Of course, we know that he took 11 of those apostles into the garden. He even took 3 to be closer with him, sort of saying, I need you. I actually need your companionship. I need your support. I need your strength. But each time they were overcome. Drowsiness, the acedia, So he was alone. He was alone. Think of the places where sin brings us to aloneness. Like that is where he went. It's where he continues to go. It's where he wants to live as Savior in your life and in mine. And you can imagine, like, what would that have been like for him? But all we hear is a prayer. Jesus prayed his passion. Jesus prayed his whole life. Do you know why Judas knew where to find Jesus in Gethsemane? Because all the different times Jesus would come to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast with his apostles, this was his spot to pray. And so Judas knew, oh yeah, I mean, he could only betray him because he was a friend, because he was allowed in. I know where to find him. It's great for our own lives to think, you can pray at the darkest moment of desolation, you can. But you might not be able to pray unless you have a routine of prayer. This is how Jesus lived. And what is that prayer? Just so briefly, this is a prayer that I have found at different points in my life that I can live from for like weeks at a time. 3 movements to this prayer, if it was some kind of symphony of salvation. The first is an act of faith, and a certain kind of faith. Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. It's the only place in the gospel where that Aramaic, affectionate way of calling God his Father, which he did throughout the 4 gospels, but this time, Abba, Papa, Dad. I know who you are, and that will always be the case no matter what I suffer. And I know that you're good, and I know that all things are possible to you. What a beautiful act of faith. Like he never leaves relationship in the agony and the anguish and the suffering, even when it's like crushing his body. His body's involved. Secondly, though, which is very consoling for us, he says, please take this cup away from me. Did you know we can pray like that? Father, this burden is too much. These circumstances are too much. This relationship is too much. Take the burden from me. It's a beautiful thing, but notice the act of faith comes first. Sometimes we want a petition, but after a while we say, who am I talking to right now? Am I just talking to this distant Santa Claus, or is he my Father, who I know is good, who's always been good to me, who can't not but be good to me? And then third, he says, your will be done. Do you know how Jesus has referred to this will at other parts of the Gospels? Your gracious will. Like, I want to be in your gracious will, as not something outside of me that I have to live. You know, I worked as a vocation director for many years, and when young men were experiencing like, should I take a step? I don't really want this. This wasn't my plan. It can feel that God's will is just being imposed on them. It's going to lead to misery. Jesus wants to be in the goodness of his Father's will. It's gracious. It's good. Whew, it's painful right now. It hurts right now. But your will be done. I want to encourage you, wherever you are in your life, on the itinerary of salvation, to enter this prayer with your own heart. There's something unique and profound in the Gospels about Gethsemane. We wouldn't get to the garden that he rose in the empty tomb without this garden. And the reality is we are given a beautiful chance to follow the path of salvation he took for us to freedom, liberation, healing, and hope. That's why I want to encourage you as pastor to make this week look different. To be present at the liturgies. You know, the liturgy is not theater. It's not theatrical. It's where we become contemporary. It's where we participate. That this is my body and this is my blood, which wrung out that first time at the Last Supper. Like, that's available to us. And the open heart of Christ, all it's seeking is our own open heart. So I want to encourage you to be present. Don't let shame, don't let just the worldly anxieties, your own heavy hearts, right? The apostles, that's why they were sleeping. Lord, I want to be present. Without you, I don't know what life is. Only you show me, only you reveal to me what I'm made for, what's possible, where this is all going, what it's supposed to be for. And I trust you. And in that trust, give me a union with you to say, Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. Your gracious will be done.